and welcome back to Hitting the Bars. It's Kelty.
And it's Savannah. Or Sav.
And we don't have an intro. So I was just like, okay, what am I going to say? We'll just start it out. We'll have an intro for you guys soon.
Yes, one day.
We'll have a name for you guys. We'll have an intro for you. Till then.
Exactly. Until then, just deal with us awkwardly coming up with it on the spot.
Yeah, winging it each time. Keeping you on your toes.
Exactly. Well, today we are going over, drum roll please, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. ASMR. We are going over Kelty's fitness story, the whole shebang of who she is, how the heck this chick got into YouTube, because she lives a wild life on that platform, you know?
It's a different one, that's for sure. I apologize for now. I do not have a conventional fitness journey. That is why I've never even done a quote unquote like fitness journey YouTube video. I've kind of discussed it in passing, but it's a beast. I don't think we'll get through it all today because we got many stories, and that's why we have a full podcast to tell about all my mishaps and failures, because it's mostly just a compilation of a decade of failures that led me to here. And so we're going to unroot some trauma today.
We're going to unravel this beast. I feel really lucky that it's our podcast that gets to share your story. That's crazy. Like when we talked about it, being like, let's go over our fitness story, I have like a million videos on my fitness story, and you're like, yeah, I have none. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. So excited.
And like, even that just says like to our friendship, and anytime I talk about it, how I just like, we instantly connected. It's just some people, I'm very sacred, I guess, about my past because it involves a lot of other people, and just right away you and me just clicked with everything we talked about, whether it be let's go out, let's go to the gym, let's have a beer, but also just like we had deep conversations right away, and just, you know, I feel we had like a year of friendship in a couple days kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel very comfortable doing it with you.
Oh,
so thank you for letting me unwrap this marathon.
Of course. I mean, we really do bond. Remember we went to Santa Monica Pier together? Everyone else like dipped during the event, like they wanted to go to their rooms, and you and I were like, we want to explore, grab margaritas. And you're just like bawling your eyes to me on the Santa Monica, like that weird strip. And we're just like, we got like from 0 to 100 real quick. And I feel like it bonded us.
I know, it did.
It was like instant best friend.
Oh, fully. We'll touch on some stories that we talked about that day in this podcast, but it was like stuff I'd never told anyone. And then just me and Sav just bonded over a shot of tequila and being extroverts while a lot of other people wanted to go to sleep and we're overwhelmed. We were like, social stimulation, we're on a high. Yeah. Let's keep going.
Yeah, which is weird. I'm very like introverted extrovert, you know, like I used to like, as I was growing up, I was like very shy, awkward, like had a hard time making friends. And I feel like the older I got, the more confident I got, then I became more extroverted. But like, I still would say I'm very introverted. Like I like to be alone. I live alone with Michael, and like we really just kind of do our own thing. But when it's those events, when I'm with my friends, I'm like, let's go. I never want to be alone. Constantly, I'm calling you, I'm calling Brittany, I'm calling literally Nona. I'm like, come on guys, let's hang out.
Let's go. I'm the exact same. I always say I'm an independent extrovert. Like I'm not like someone like who needs someone around me, but I definitely like thrive off emotion, like like human connection. Just like the more people I'm around, the more energy. I'm like, let's go more and bigger and go. And so I almost have to like step back and be like, you need to sleep.
Yes, I know. Sleep is for the weak. Just kidding. It's a very important fitness tip.
Culture.
Yeah.
We will go over. I was victim of the hustle culture, so I'm sure that will come to play in this podcast too.
Are you telling me you aren't hustling right now?
No, I'm balanced. I'm hustling, but I'm also prioritizing recovery and sleep. And that's why we got the Aurora ring, and we're getting our REM, we're getting our deep, we're getting our water. Emily, go drink some water. We're worried about your hydration. And yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. Well, I'm excited to dive in. Shall we do a little jumperoonie?
Let's just do a quick pivot, insert Ross reference, just pivot to something.
Pivot.
Let's go.
All right. So, Kelty, we're going to start from the basics. We're going to start from you as a little chicken that has just hatched. What was your childhood like? Like, I get the vibe that you're a sporty gal, especially because I know you, and I know you did basketball. You told me you did volleyball. So did you grow up with it? Kind of give me the rundown of childhood Kelty.
You hit the nail on the head right there. Sporty girl. That was me. Like Spice Girls, sporty girl. Like that was me. I was the only girl in my entire extended family, and all my cousins played like university basketball, baseball. My dad was a college football. My mom was a college track athlete that went on to run marathons. She was fitness. So it was like I learned to swim before I could walk. I had a basketball in my hand at 3 years old. I spent my whole life as, I guess, a tomboy, but it was more of just like I just only had male influence. So it was just like Kelty, just trying to keep up with all my 6'4" cousins since I was 6 years old. So that's what sports and actually music, but sports specifically is like what my family bonded on. Like everyone played sports. It was just, I didn't know life without it. I was raised by it. It was who my family was raised by. I think I started soccer first when I was like 4 years old, got into basketball at 8. I played every single sport under the moon. It was pretty nice. My family definitely, like up till I was like 14, let me try everything. They were like, hey, we'll put her in everything and then you can kind of narrow it down from there. But then I had trouble narrowing it down. But definitely by junior high, it became basketball, volleyball, competitive swimming, and like a bit of track just to like balance it all. And those were my main ones. Badminton and soccer I also played pretty competitively up till like, I think I was only like 14. So competitively is kind of putting it lightly. I was like, it's not really. But then I had to cancel those out. And then, yeah, I was just the sporty girl. Like that was my life. I knew nothing but that. I didn't even know there's other options. That was just, and then, yeah, junior high and high school, basketball and volleyball really became my main focus. I had to, unfortunately, quit swimming when I was about 15 or 16. Even that, to this day, still haunts me. I think because I loved it. I was a water baby. Like, to this day, the thought of, like, the shotgun to start a race, like, I crave that. Like, I'll forever miss that. But it's just, you only have so much time, especially when you get more competitive. And, like, basketball definitely was always a priority in my family. My cousins played basketball. My dad was a basketball coach. It was just, that was how we were raised. So it just became more teams, more competitive teams. And then you start getting on the idea of like, oh, I could have a scholarship if I really hyper focus. So then by the time I got to high school, it was volleyball and basketball were my main two. And I did actually play other sports out of force almost, like just like the rugby team and the track team and the golf team were like, you're athletic, just please come play. And so I would just go do that. So which I'm so thankful for. Sports created so many things. I think my discipline, my willpower, my ability to meet new people, to travel, nothing will be harder than doing a beep test till you puke. So nothing in YouTube or grinding or any challenge I've done has been remotely as hard as what I had to do in sports. I'm thankful for that. But then I definitely went into the identity crisis when sports ends. But yeah, so that's me growing up. I was just the sporty tomboy girl, like my entire life. That's all I knew.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like kids that grow up like extremely sporty, like those are the kids that out of all 3 seasons you're playing a sport, those like, you guys have the most like determination I've ever seen and just like discipline, because you're forced to have that at such a young age. Like, yeah, you know, like teen years, like you really like just learn to grind in the sense of like how to work your body to the core, because you're just like, this is what I do. This is all I know. And like, that makes sense why you're so determined now, even when you do those challenges on YouTube that you're like, I run a marathon in my apartment, things like that. Like that totally probably stems from you being this sporty spice gal that like did constant sports growing up. You know?
I'm like so thankful to this day, because I didn't have an awful childhood. I'm not going to sit there as people that are like way worse. By no means was it a perfect, but the lessons sports taught me has like formed me into such a character. I like I said, nothing will be harder than some of the practices I had. Like, I mean, like 2 hours of running, your coach says you're done, you're puking, and they're like, just kidding, do it all again. Like, until you've experienced that feeling, like the fact, like anything I do, I'm fully aware of the end point. Like, I don't have anyone telling me to do it. So people say my challenges are tough. I'm like, oh, if you only knew what 16-year-old Kelty went through. And this is before social media, so there was stuff that would not fly today. Oh my God. Like, I was in when, like, what was it? What's it called? Not when you like the freshmen get beat up by the seniors.
Oh, hazing.
Oh yeah, so hazing was still legal when I was in high school. Like, I was like the last. I remember when I was in like grade 11 was when everything got shut down. It was like, you cannot haze anymore. So I literally was like the last grade to get hazed, and I didn't even get a haze when I was
Wait, give me an example of your hazing.
Oh my
I did not know people did this back in high school.
I know. It was just like, I'm trying to think of some examples. Oh, one would have been like one of the seniors was like, Kelty, go get some ice when we were staying in a hotel. I was like, okay. I was the only grade 10 on the team, or I think there's 2 of us. So I was like, okay, go down helping my seniors out. I come back, knock on the door. It's locked. And they're like,
do they do that on purpose?
Yeah, they're like, have a good night. I'm like, wait, what?
Wait, what?
Like,
where would you sleep?
Exactly. And then so I knock on all the other doors, and then eventually I was just slept in the hallway. I think I ended up sleeping on the couch, and like on the hallway, my coach came, was like, what are you? Where are you? And like, you can't tell on your seniors because, you know, wrath will come. So like just stuff like that. And then like pep rallies, I remember they were like, hey, Kelty, they put you in weird get-ups, and they're like, hey, Kelty, we're going to all do this dance. You go out for like, we had this choreographed dance planned, and like, it wasn't even choreographed. It was like, oh, like 30 seconds before we went out. We're like, we're all going to do this weird flail. And I'm like, okay, awesome. And they're like, but you're going to go out first because it goes in order of age. And like, I'd never done it. So then they send me in front of the entire school of like 1,200 people. And I'm going there in this weird costume, just flailing. And I look back and no one's following me. And so I just like ran into it. So in front of it, like it's harmless. Like I was never hurt. Like some of the boys had it way worse. I'm just trying to think of some other examples. Oh, I had to like play a volleyball tournament with Sharpie on my face. Like, just
stop. These girls are so mean.
But it was all like,
I want to punch them for you.
It was honestly in all good fun, because it was one of those like, I know it sounds bad. I'm not condoning hazing. I'm lucky I got it in a very fun way. I didn't get it in like, some people literally get beat up, and I'm sure honestly it's probably worse with social media. I take what I get than like probably the hatred that happens on social media to kids now. But it was like this kind of, you'd rather them haze you than ignore you. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, oh, you're...
Because then you would be accepted?
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's like, oh, you're just doing your time. This is just welcome to it. Like, just kind of, you know how you tease your best friends more than anyone? It's kind of like that vibes. It's like you're in on the joke. Like I said, I never had it so bad. Like, I have no scarring from it. I know there's a lot of people that do. And that's, I guess I was like, it was very respectful hazing. It was so, but definitely have some humiliating stories, to say the least.
Wow. I think that may be you with some tough skin, because I would have like crawled into a ball and been mortified. Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting for our listeners to like comment in on our Instagram page or something. Like, are you like, would you have a positive outlook? Like, you're like, you know what? You know, I put in my time. Yeah. Where I'd be like, fuck this. No way. Like, you freaking bully. I'd be like, no.
I guess that's valid. But then also, like, that's why I think YouTube, like, we talk about, like, challenges. I was like, I make a fool of myself. I'm like, as long as someone can laugh about it. Like, I've been embarrassed enough.
You're like, it grew me.
Try and embarrass me. Well, please don't. I know the internet could do some crazy things. But it takes a lot. It takes a lot now, which is a blessing and a curse.
That's crazy. Well, okay. Speaking of hazing, let's jump into college.
Yes.
You know, better turn around than that. All right. So going into your college years, I feel like it's pretty rare to like meet an actual college athlete, you know? So you did basketball, correct?
Yeah.
What was that like?
So, like I said, sports my entire life. That's all I knew. I spent my whole entire life being like, get good grades so you can go to any college you want. You can play any sport you want. Like, everything was about that. So by the time high school was grade 12 to my first year of university was very much a lot of my life being flipped upside down. So I don't even know how to explain it simply, but I was in a place where I wanted to go to college for either basketball or volleyball, and I was super torn. And looking back, I think deep down, I almost wanted to go for volleyball more. I think I loved it so much, but there was a pressure to do basketball because it's my dad and my cousins, and that's what we did. And also, I'm only 5'7", so I would have just had to play libero. We talked about it on the podcast before. So I was like, you know what, basketball, I can play point guard, shooting guard. There's a lot more opportunities. And I only had like 2 colleges look at me for volleyball, and they weren't like, one was good, but like I knew I'd probably be bench warmer for a while. And that was kind of all I could do, versus basketball had a lot more opportunities. So you go to like ID camps and they get noticed, and then there's scholarship offers and all this. So I ended up going to a place in Edmonton, signed with them at Kings, and then I was hoping to go do 2 years there and then go to U of C and that in Calgary. And that was kind of my like hope because that's where my cousin went. But I tried out at like U of C and U of A and Lethbridge and a bunch, and just for whatever reason, I knew I could get a lot of playing time. First year at Kings, I really enjoyed the girls. Instantly, it just felt very much like, oh, I really like the girls here. They were nationally ranked at the time, and I was just like, you know what? This feels like home. Like you just instantly just felt very comfortable. It felt like an easier transition than going across. And I didn't have a lot of money. So I was like, they offered a good scholarship. Didn't have to worry about pay because it's different in the States. Like we don't have full rides in Canada. All they can pay for is your tuition. They can't pay for books. They can't pay for housing, anything. I know it's a lot different NCAA, which there's a lot more money. NCAA is a way bigger than up in Canada. But yeah, so I went and feel very lucky that I got to play basketball. So yeah, I went on to play college basketball. That was definitely my dream. But it's a weird thing going towards like college, especially in sport like basketball. I wasn't going to go pro. I knew that. I knew kind of college was the end goal, but it was a weird thing. I spent my entire life focused on like just playing college and like having good grades just so I could play in college. And I wanted to go to med school. That was my game plan because I love Grey's Anatomy and House. So I was like, yeah, I got good grades. Let's just go. But my first year was a rocky one. It was the best time and like the worst time in my entire life, those first 2 years, in the sense that like honestly playing a college sport was so amazing. If you get the opportunity, especially in Canada, I highly recommend it. You do get that college experience even in Canada, that you get the instant friendship. There's the parties. There's just like people to hang out with. You just get a feel of special. You just meet a lot of people and you're instantly with the basketball players are friends with the volleyball players. They're friends with the football team. That it's just, you get a part of a community of like-minded people. You get to meet people instantly that are like you that you didn't know in high school. So I'm so thankful for it. It was so much fun. It was a wild ride. And you really learn time management. Oh my gosh, balancing like a science degree and school, and you have to have certain degrees and like you have to have certain grades, not just for you, but otherwise like the team, it holds you accountable. So it was so much fun. It was great. And it was super hard fitness wise, like workouts. So that's why I was like, anything I've done will never be as hard as like those practices. Like I remember 5 a.m. track practices before school you go to, and then you go to school and then you'd have weight training, then you have a actual practice after on top of all the studying. So that was great and I loved it. But what ended up happening is I ended up blowing out my knee. And this is where my story does take a bit of a turn. It was the stupidest injury on the face of the planet. I don't think I've told this on the internet. I'm going to butcher it. But I always had a bit of a torn meniscus my entire life. Or not my entire life. Like, it's very common to have a torn meniscus when you play sports. And so my knee would always lock. And I went one day to shoot a foul shot in practice. And because usually after a drill, your coach is like, go shoot 2, then you can have water. I went to shoot and my knee just locked. And it like was completely locked to 90-degree angle, no pain. And I remember one friend's like, you okay? I was like, oh yeah, it just locks sometime. It's fine. And I don't even to this day remember how I did it, but I grabbed my one foot with my hand and then like slammed my hand down on my knee and it just like ruptured. So yeah, I tore like my meniscus right then, like completely, so they thought. So I went to the doctor with like my bare hands and they were like, oh, it's just meniscus. You'll be fine in 2 weeks. So I'm like, perfect. I'll be fine in 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, I started trying to play again and I would just collapse and my knee would like just swell. And so I kept trying to play and it would just keep swelling and just would be collapsing. And so it was really hard to figure out what was going. Especially healthcare is way different here in Canada. So just to get an MRI, just get a specialist to look at it, you get put on this long waiting list. So I was just beating up, not sure what happened. But pretty much what was doing is like my meniscus had torn then, and then because I kept playing through it, it kept like pooling with blood. People don't really want to hear this. Anyways, long story short, I just destroyed my knee. I had to go get knee surgery. They had to like repair my kneecap, take out all this scar tissue, drain it, fix up my meniscus. It was just like a whole bunch of just playing on an injury. And that took like about a year just to get into surgery. And then once I was out of surgery was like honestly a blur.
Is that because of the healthcare system? A whole year?
Because it's a blessing and a curse. So like not everything, but we have free healthcare in Canada. But because things are free, there's usually really long wait lists for things. So you just, especially not like,
you just like wait and you just like lay off your knee for a year? Like you just don't use it?
yeah, so like I had a year of like I was just like on the sideline just doing like bike and abs for like a year, just trying to rehab it and just doing everything I could, but you're just kind of waiting. And so that's, I wonder if it's similar in the States. Like I think it's probably similar for people in like lower division schools that don't have finances, but I'm sure people in like higher division schools or pro athletes can like just pay to get in, but then, or insurance. I'm not sure how it works. This is me being oblivious, but yeah, it was a long waiting game and probably did more damage than good. But finally, and that year, so the summer, I blew up my knee. I remember I was at a bar one day and this guy comes up to me. He was just classic drunk dude. He's like, oh, so what do you do? And I remember just sitting at him blankly and was like, oh my God. And this poor guy was like, I just wanted to buy this girl a drink. And she just like deer in the headlights blanked. And it was like an identity crisis in that moment. I was like, I have nothing. I was like, I'm literally nothing. Because I was like, I can't say basketball right now. I was like, I'm injured. I might not play next year. I'm like on the waiting list for surgery. And like, I had this crisis that I knew I didn't want to go to med school anymore because I realized hospitals are not like Grey's Anatomy, and that I actually didn't want to be a doctor. I wanted to be on Grey's Anatomy, but that's a realization I figured out.
You want to be an actor.
Yeah, or just entertainment. But I realized that many of years later. But yeah, I just then got in a dark place. My parents got divorced. There was a lot of I don't want to tell other people's stories though. That's like other people in my family because it's their own mental health journey. So, you know, one day if I get permission. But yeah, so there was, home life was very bad. I pretty much had to get out. I had no money, was on my own. Then lost basketball. My grades started dropping because I was just so depressed and I wasn't playing basketball. I had no direction. And then I ended up getting knee surgery and I came out of knee surgery. And it had been like a year of like my grades slowly dropping. So I didn't see the point of even having good grades. I'm like, why have, like, I'm not playing basketball. Like, well, who cares if I have good grades? I don't want to go to med school. Like my grades started dropping, started drinking more, started just like caring about partying. My health just like, I was still working out because I cared about it. But I came out of knee surgery and was just like, there's literally like, there's nothing. And yeah, so like I had nothing to work towards. I'd spent my whole life hyper-focused and there's somebody who was just like looking to the black abyss. And, you know, your team, you're no longer really on the team when you're injured as much, like, because you're not there every day. And like, so I felt like I lost my friends. My other friends from high school were going on to do other things. I felt like an imposter being on the team when I was injured because I was like, well, you're not serving the team. Like, what's even the point of your presence? And like, you're not included. My family life was gone. My mom and brother I just didn't want to even bother them. And so after like a year of just losing everything, I got out of knee surgery and just went back to my dorm, sat alone like for a day. And yeah, that was when I had my suicide attempt I've talked about on my channel. And I, for the grace of God, I don't want to go into the details because the only reason I knew you could kill yourself that way is because I heard about it in a book. And so like in that moment, I was like, this is accessible. Let's do this. So that's why I'd rather not go into details about it just because I know you can figure it out, but it was that's my truth, lack of better terms. And so, yeah, and I woke up and that next couple months was just a blur because then I was like, wow, you are so shitty of a human that you can't even do that right. Like, it was just like, that was my final, like, you know what, there's no point. I can't serve anyone. I have no direction. I'm just a burden to my mom and brother. And they would never think that. They love me. But I'm just like, you're not thinking rational when you're that depressed. And you're that, like, but my rationale was like, my mom just has to worry about my brother. She has one less kid. That's that much less to worry about. And, like, that was mine. I was like, and, yeah, so I woke up and the next few months were just, like, a complete blur. And luckily though, because I was like, you know what, maybe I'll try and play next year. So I was like, rehab your knee, get back into it. And then I ended up it's all kind of a mess, but I honestly got into the bar scene as funny as it sounds. So I was like, you need a job. So I started bartending. And then I started getting into weight training a bit just because I was rehabbing my knee. So I started to become more knowledgeable on that. And then the next year was just definitely a wild roller coaster. Like, did not care about my health. Was kind of interested in, you know, fitness because I was like, maybe I'll come back. And I was bartending. And when you bartend, you're drinking every day of the week because you're drinking on shift. And then you're working Friday to Saturday, Sunday. So you're like, oh, I need a night out. So you're going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I was not an alcoholic, but I drank every day because that's why bartending is so bad for you in so many ways. But and that was just definitely a year of just filling all my extra time that didn't come from basketball with drinking and trying to figure out what I wanted to do for school. I was still in sciences, but I was like, why am I doing sciences when I don't want to go to med school? It's like you're taking one of the harder undergraduate degrees. And I was like, why don't I just take marketing or something? And I was like, you know what? Nike commercials are really cool. So I think in my 3.5 years, I'd literally changed. I was in school for so long because 3.5 years in, I changed from sciences to marketing. Just because I didn't want to do sciences anymore. I didn't want to go to med school. And I liked Nike commercials. So I was like, oh, those would be cool to make one day. So I was like, go into marketing. Having just, like I said, everything was a blur. It was a mess. I didn't know what I was doing. And yeah, it was about a year or two of kind of working out, kind of falling off the bandwagon, like no longer having to train for sports, but like wanted to rehab and then eventually kind of lose that passion. And so it was kind of working out because I knew, but I didn't. And that's why like what I'm even saying probably doesn't make sense because it was just a blur.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were just trying to figure out like what your next move was. It sounds like, I mean, you were identified for so long as this sporty spice girl. Like you proudly said that, like that was me as a kid. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I'm an adult now and I have to figure out like what the heck I want to do with my own life. And you have to navigate like your independence a lot, you know, like that's a crazy thing that like at some point people come at. And like, how did you know, once you hit rock bottom and you were like, all right, well, I'm going to keep on going. Like I'm going to get through this. And you started bartending and like, what kind of made you like who you are now? Like, what brought you joy when you bartended and like you started working out again? You know, like when did you start kind of finding what fulfilled you?
Well, a lesson even looking back now, realizing it, and I hope this resonates with anyone who feels they're in like just a weird place. You don't realize you're in rock bottom when you're rock bottom. You don't realize the world's falling. Like you feel bad and you feel sad and like, but you're really numb, at least for myself. Like I couldn't even tell you. It wasn't like, oh, I need to fix everything. I was just like, you're so lost of a direction that you just don't even know. You just kind of get up and you go through the motions. And luckily, I didn't know what else. I literally was just like, you know what, I need money. Bartending seems kind of cool. Like there wasn't much to do in Edmonton where I was from. Like I was just like, oh, that would be kind of like badass to just like be a bartender, get my friends into the club. And like I was in my like party phase. So I was like, you know what, let's try this out. And it ended up being like the worst and best thing because the first bar I worked at, like I said, I was drinking way too much and I was like, this is, I don't know. But because of that, I ended up meeting Lexi, who's my best friend to this day, because we were both bar stars working at a bar, and we kind of became friends, and then we drifted apart because we ended up working at different bars. And then I just got to a point, I think after like 2 years of this, just like constant drinking, and I actually got in a really bad car accident and should be dead. Another nearly, like I've had too many near death. The car flipped. I walked out. I was like, after a night of partying, I was behind the wheel. I was in the passenger side, and then the car ended up flipping. I walked out without a scrape. The car was hanging upside down, and I just like the next day was like, what are you doing with yourself? Like that was like my, not rock bottom, but wake up call. I think like after 2 years of this numbness, being like, I don't even know, I'll just do this because that seems cool and do this and latching onto anything I possibly could. That was like you need to flip your life upside down. Like you are going to die. Like, do you really want to? I was like, you had two near-death situations. You want to take your third. Like it was that. And I literally went to church the next day. And like, I'm not like overly religious. Like I grew up, I was just like, I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to go to church. I just went in Sunday. It meant like, I just sat there and was like, hey, you need wholesome in your life. Cause I had too many years of the most opposite of wholesome that we can get into for another stories eventually. But literally then the Monday, you'll laugh at this. I was like, okay, I need wholesome. I'm going to go on a raw food diet. Like, and I never really dieted or anything, but I was just like, I just didn't want any alcohol. I didn't want any more 2 a.m. McDonald's. I was like, I'm just going to eat vegetables. I think I knew nothing, but I just did that. I was like, let's just start educating yourself. And luckily I had the science background. My mom was a fitness instructor. I had somewhat of a background of sports. So I was like, okay, let's just take this more seriously. And I just wanted wholesomeness in my body. So I was like, okay, get back to the gym, start eating healthy again. Don't drink on shift. And that's what kind of was the real, I was dabbling in fitness during those kind of times, but this was when I was really like, no, let's get back to feeling good when you wake up.
Yeah. That like gives me, I literally got goosebumps when you told me you walked out of that car without a scratch. I can't believe that. And I mean, I'm in the same boat as you with like, I'm not overly religious. Like I was raised, Christian, but like that 100% was like a sign from God to be like, dude, figure out your life. Yeah. Like you're a mess right now. That's crazy.
Whatever power you believe in, like it's hard for me to I don't know. Like my mom has taught me so many different religions and I grew up being like learning about so many. So it's really hard for me to be like, oh, I'm just this, but whatever. There's got to be something that I literally was hanging in a car upside down with like branches of trees through it, just hanging upside down in the seatbelt. And I'm like, you like life flashed before your eyes. Like no, I walked away without a scrape. I think I lost a shoe. Like that was the extent of it. I was like to this day, I was like that's why I think I'm very positive and I'll do anything. Cause like I shouldn't be here. Like at the end of the day, say what you want, I shouldn't be. So I feel I have a second, third chance at life. And so I'm like, you know what, might as well make the most of it. And I think that's why my personality is, maybe some would call it, I want to say extreme, but I'm just willing to kind of go for it because I had those near-death situations and it brought me to where I am today. So I'm thankful for them. As much as they sucked, I'm thankful for them.
Wow. That's amazing. Thank you for like opening up about that because I know as your friend, that's not easy for you to talk about, let alone like talk to a friend about or to share with who knows who is even watching or listening. But like, I think even by you sharing that story, I'm sure you're helping so many women or men or whatever it may be. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for sharing that.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's one
like you've told me, the suicide attempt, I knew that, but I didn't even know about the car. Like, you're just like this book that's just onion.
Oh,
the layers.
We've just peeled the first slick, like nasty one. That first that's about all we've peeled so far. That's why I was like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm so complex and no, it's just like, no, I just screwed up so many times and just like constantly tried a bunch and failed at a bunch of things. And so that's why my fitness journey is anything but linear.
Absolutely. And I also think it shows like sometimes people, I feel like, look at, YouTubers, influencers as like, oh, it comes easy. They just get it, whatever. And it's like every single person has been through shit. Like every single person has been through hell. And just always keep that in mind that like you may not know what's going behind closed doors. Like you're one of the most positive people I know. And like to watch you online, I would never have known that. I'm sure a lot of, your followers could say that. Like you bring positive energy and like I don't think anybody would have known this about you. So that's why you just always like don't judge a book by its cover, like all of that kind of, I don't even know where I'm going with that, but pizzazz of just give people grace because everyone's been through something, everyone has their own triggers. And
it's a good reminder even like for myself and like an example of why you can't judge anyone. Like as much as I think my default is positive, my mom was very positive, my dad was not so I was very torn that, but like there's many of years had you met me, I would have been like the classic like who cares, like let's just go drink our faces off. Like that would have been like the Kelty you saw. And like there's like always kind of like versus now I'm extremely positive because I'm like, you know what, every day is a blessing. Like every day I get, like let's make the most of it. And like that's just it's not like that's not my default. That was just because I've seen the other side.
Yeah for sure. Well, on a happier note, ma'am, I would love to know, I know that you have told me kind of like a gist of your story of like you were bartending. This is when you were getting more into, like you said, you were focusing on Whole Foods. You were focusing on, kind of just bettering yourself in general. Is that when you started, finding your love for YouTube? Like, where did that go?
So yeah, this is a little not linear once again, but after that, I got into bartending. I was kind of in that for a year or two. I started getting just really into fitness again and like working out and realizing I can work out not for sports. As funny as that sounds, is realizing like that's a part of you. You enjoy working out. You enjoy having a goal, having something to work towards. And I actually got into sprinting right away. Definitely like that. I was like, hey, track, I can do this. I can run real fast. This feels good. I'm naturally like a runner, like very, like, I guess fast twitch would be the term. And so I enjoyed that. But to train for that, I started getting into weightlifting, just to like get better at it. And it's funny, Edmonton, where I'm from, is very much it's like Texas of Canada, Alberta. That's the best way to describe it. So like Edmonton and Calgary, like the Houston and Dallas of Alberta. So that's the context of just some reference. So it was, for whatever reason, it was really big into bodybuilding. And so like people were like really into weight training and that whole. And so if you're in the gym looking like you're training hard, it was like you're a bodybuilder. That's the culture. So I kind of got into that. And at the exact same time, it was when I got really into YouTube because I loved it. Like since Jenna Marbles, like that was just, I honestly couldn't afford cable. So I watched YouTube.
Every Wednesday.
Oh my God, I loved her. Oh my God.
That.
Why?
It was like 8 p.m. PST or something.
Internet, the fact you got Jenna Marble off the internet and canceled, I'm still angry. She's a gem. I miss her so much. But anyways, so yeah, I just always consumed YouTube and I loved it. And I loved, like that's what I say, I went to school for marketing because I wanted to make Nike commercials. Like I loved every day before a basketball game, I watched this one Nike commercial every single day and it would hype me up. And it was this one with like the Killers song. What is it? Someday by the Killers or something. And I watched it and I was like, the fact you can make a clip and make it like change someone's emotion. Yeah. Just like, and I remember I really struggled with reading and writing growing up, but I had a English teacher in high school who let me do movie presentations instead. And because she did that, I was like, I'm going to go hard. Like I went hard on these. I was like, I'm going to make this a cinematic masterpiece. I'm going to like, and I got like A+ for someone who like really struggles at grammar and spelling and essay writing. Just because this amazing, like to this day, I hope one day I can go back to my hometown and thank her somehow because like she has no idea how much she impacted me of just like allowing that and like not being so like English is writing. And it is, don't get me wrong. But allowing like a different form, like I wrote a script and I presented it and I did it differently. And I did it very like I cared so much about like the symbolism of the movie. And I watched American Beauty was when I did it on. It's a movie. Kevin Spacey's been canceled, so I know it's we're not a fan of him. Great movie though. And I watched it like 100 times and like would study each scene of it, being like, oh, why is the camera angled like this? And like I was just always fascinated by this and like how it's moving art. And so I was getting into weightlifting. I was obsessed with YouTube. I was obsessed with movies and entertainment. And then this was kind of the rise of the fitness YouTuber. And this was like, I don't know if you remember like Christian Guzman and that whole world. And they started getting like really they would bring in like editors and videographers and they got really like just, it was very like high end cinema is the best way I could describe it. Like they just cared about the camera angles and the montage and all this. I was like, wait, you can do this on your own?
Is this like their vlogs or something?
Yeah, their vlogs. They just like leveled up because before then I was watching like Casey Neistat and those people, but Christian Guzman and Jan Olsen, sorry, he's Swedish. It's not John, it's Jan as a now Swedes. Yeah, they both were just like YouTubers that were just like brought in drones and like 4K cameras and different angles. And they were making full productions every single day. And I was just like, oh my God, I want to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do this about, but I want to create this. And I just was like fascinated by it. And just at the time I was doing fitness and I was doing actually bodybuilding, which is a whole story in itself. And I got into that world for a couple of years, but I was just honestly just did it because I wanted my in the fitness industry. And I was like, oh, this will be my in of getting to work with brands like Nikes and Gymsharks and all those people in the world. And then I also was just documenting and trying to figure it out. I had no money. I had like the tiniest little point and shoot camera that I bought for like $50 and I was editing on iMovie and was just figuring it out for many years. And I just genuinely loved, there was no money in it. I did know that like Christian Guzman, I saw that, I was like, oh, sometimes he's sponsored by people and he gets money from that. And I was like, maybe if I'm like, I could make money. So I didn't even think about that. It was just like, I just genuinely loved it. Like I was doing it while they were doing it and just documenting my fitness journey because I was doing fitness. Like they were different, even though it ended up being the same, they were different in my mind.
But you're totally right in the sense of like back then in that era, like it was like you had to be extreme to kind of make it in that. Like
yes.
I remember when I first fell into fitness and like coming up on people like Taylor Chamberlain was one of the first gals that I found that like I'm pretty sure she was like bikini competitor like you know, like, you're totally right. There wasn't a lot of lifestyle gals back then. So I see where you probably were like, well, this is the grind I got to do to get into this industry, which
fully.
I'm so thankful it's not like that. And it's just crazy. I look back at that and you're totally right. The people that I followed, Nikki, everyone, they all competed. And it was like a foreign thing to other people, or like, I mean, it was incredible to see like the determination that they would put their body through. But yeah, you're totally right. Like it was all the way
fully.
or nothing.
It was so, and like that was like what I was like, oh, that's the only fitness content people wanted. Like the thought of like doing anything else was literally like, no, YouTube doesn't want that. So I just remember being like, hey, I got to do this. And like the fact bodybuilding was really big in Edmonton, so that was, I was like just super into that world for a long time. Like I got qualified for nationals, and it's different in Canada than US, without getting to that too much, but pretty much like you get like top 5 at regionals, then you can do top 5 provincials, you can go to nationals, the winner of nationals gets their pro card. That's how it is. And went that. But yeah, so I did that. And then like I qualified for nationals, and I was like, this is everything I'm against. Like, it's like, I'm in the worst shape of my life. I'm working out just to build muscle, and there's nothing wrong with it. Meaning because I did it, I saw a lot of people who truly loved it. And that's why I was like, it's a sport, but it was not the sport I liked. Like I like running fast, and I love running, and cardio is the opposite of bodybuilding. It's very much like the anti-cardio sport. So it was just like, I'm like, oh, I'm only doing this for my YouTube channel. I was like, what happened if I did fitness I actually want to do for my YouTube channel? And that was when like I had 500 subs when I was doing the bodybuilding thing. So it's not like anyone would even remember, but that's why I decided to make the shift. I was like, why don't you care more about the YouTube side of it and then just document fitness you enjoy doing, versus being like, oh, I have to be a bodybuilder to make it on YouTube fitness world. And I'm blessed I had that realization, because I think that was definitely a fad for sure at least in YouTube.
Yeah, totally. So then I know you've told me that like you were, you know, trying to be a YouTuber for a while, and then you had your big breakout with your Tom Brady diet challenge, right?
Yeah. So like I said, I was just figuring out, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was actually living in Halifax for the last few years of college, and then I moved back to Edmonton. And during that time, I'd done like a what to expect kickboxing video, and that was my big break. I thought, I was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be the first person to try every fitness class, and people are going to look for it. And I was like, it's going to be massive. And it got like 50 views, and I was like, oh, darn it, nobody cares. And
that's the worst.
Like I remember in my soul, I was like, no, this is gonna be big. Like this is gonna be big. Tanked.
Yeah. You were manifesting. Okay.
You just gotta be patient. 6 months later, I creeped back on that video, 100,000 views. I was like, wait, what? I had like 1,000 subscribers. I was like mind blown. I was like, so like just the SEO optimized. Then like it got to YouTube there, and I was like, oh, people kind of want this. Like people want this kind of content. So I done that. I done some try on hauls. That was when like try on haul Lulu's, like you just buy a bunch of Lulu stuff and try it on. And that was the epitome of YouTube. So I did that. Had just come back to Edmonton, was doing like what to expect videos, and I'd gone to Toronto for the summer. I just done a little traveling. I'd actually taken a little break from YouTube and just taken 2 months and been like, let's figure out what you want to do with your life. I just gotten out of a really bad relationship. I had just moved across country. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just finished school, like completely finished it. And then I was like, what are you going to do? I took 2 months, traveled with my friends, ended up in Toronto. Toronto is like going to New York for a Canadian. That's like our New York. Vancouver's our LA. Toronto's our New York. So that's the equivalent. So this little, I think of that as like a little Texan girl going off to Toronto. The big city is how I would describe it to you American listeners. All my Canadians just rolled their eyes like, oh God, you just were in Edmonton.
Was it you that told me that Vancouver is like the tropical of Canada?
Yeah, and there's 2 palm trees that are fake.
I told Michael that this weekend as I live in a tropical climate, and we were like dying laughing but I mean, it's warmer.
It
like
is.
Vancouver, because I mean, I'm from Seattle. That's like an hour drive away from Vancouver, and like it's warm. It doesn't really like snow as often. I mean, it snows very often. Like I see the comparison, but it just kills me that it's like the terrain is like that's as warm as you get.
Yeah, think of Seattle being your warmest place in the country. That's our Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's like the exact same. It's a little north, so it's a little colder than Seattle. And that's
so you're living in the sunshine.
Oh yeah, baby. 2 months of the year. So my tan is out of a bottle always. But yeah, but I went to Toronto and I remember the moment, and I remember it was so reckless. But I was like standing on this one street in Toronto and I looked up, I was like, you got to move here. You got to move here. It is not happening. Like Edmonton is a very small town. There's like, that's why I didn't even think of like when I love Grey's Anatomy that like you can just go try and be an actor. Like that thought does not cross your mind. You have a 9 to 5, you go to Mexico once a year. That's the Edmonton dream. And it's a very comfortable city. It's very safe. You can live a very nice life. And I love the city, but it's a safe city. It's a comfortable city. You don't go after your big dreams in that city. So anyone who tries to leave, people are like, try to almost scare you because they're worried. They're genuinely worried. They're like, I don't want you to go out and become broke. But I went to Toronto. I just had this feeling. I was like, you know what? I'm single in my mid-20s. Let's give this a go. What do I have to lose? I can always go back to Edmonton. Edmonton doesn't change. So after that trip, I moved back to Edmonton for 2 weeks, moved to Toronto. I'd only ever been to Toronto for like a week of my life. And that was just like packaged up. Sold everything I had. Had to lie my way to get an apartment in Toronto because I had like no credit, no money. I just like to prove I could pay it, and got a bartending job there to pay the bills. So I'm like, you're going to go here and you're going to give yourself 6 months to devote yourself to YouTube. 6 months, nothing, tunnel vision, go. And yeah, so I did that. And then I actually had a few videos that started getting some traction. Like I did What to Expect at Orange Theory. So it's enough that I was like, okay, you just have to keep hustling. You just have to keep consistently getting better and just be consistent with it. And I did it. And the Tom Brady video is kind of funny because the only reason I did it is I was there for 3 months. I was working in a bar. I was not being healthy. I was eating no vegetables because I was broke. I was literally buying my groceries at the dollar store. It's like canned meat and potatoes. I would eat that, like, which is gross. But like, I was like, you know what? We got to make it work. And I saw a BuzzFeed video. And they did Tom Brady's diet for 24 hours and it blew up. So I was like, you know what? You do need some fruits and vegetables in your life. Like I didn't want to diet. Like I wasn't trying to lose weight, but I was like, you need some nutrients. I was feeling very bloated. My digestion was off. And I was like, you know what happens if you did it for a month? Like just, and that was when like, that was YouTube. It was just like being more extreme than the person. Like I've even had to teach myself, like that was a thing in the past, but you just always had like one up. And that was, so I was like, you know what? Do it for a month. See what happens. I filmed this video. And everyone thought it was crazy. I was working in this bar and I had all these weird things. And everyone just made fun. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I'm just doing this. I want to try it, see what happens. And I went to, this was also, if things seem like they're going really, really wrong, sometimes that's a sign you're like preparing for the easy part or whatever's happening. Because I edited this video. It was like, I was like, this is good. Like people are going to like this. And I was in Edmonton for Christmas, went to publish this video. Like it was exporting at night. I had to get on the plane because my whole plan for YouTube that year was to upload every Tuesday, Thursday. So I'm going to upload every Tuesday. I told my 10,000 subscribers, like, I'm not missing an upload. It's going to be ready when I woke up. I woke up to go to the airport. My computer had stopped charging in the middle of the night, so it didn't export. And I'm like, so I was like, oh my God, it's going to be late. I promised them 9 a.m. This was going to be like my year to make it. And I was like, oh no, I missed it. And then I was like, hey, I'll upload at 9 p.m. when I get back to Toronto. So stressing this whole entire way. I get back at 9 p.m. My Wi-Fi has never been so slow. It was like 8 hours to export, like upload onto the YouTube. I was like, oh no. And like I was destroyed. I was like that, which sounds so funny, but sometimes you hyperfixate on things like YouTube and growth and whatnot. So it was like that Friday morning, I saw it was finally uploaded, exported onto YouTube, and I just gave up at this point. I was like, you moved across the country. You like dipped way into debt, like not way into debt, but I blew my savings, dipped into debt, like line of credit, like all this. And I was like, to do YouTube in Toronto, like who do you think you are? And I uploaded this video, press publish, slammed my laptop and just walked down streets of Toronto for like 2 hours and just crying. I was like, I gotta move back. I'm a useless piece of crap. Like that was the thoughts just going through my mind. I was like, this is dumb. And I started walking back and I opened YouTube. And at the time, if I had like a view per minute, it was good. So after 60 minutes, if I had 60 views, I was like, oh, it's a good video. And at 1,000. And I was like, what? 2 hours, 1,000. And I was like, what's going on? This is before like, I think everyone kind of goes viral on TikTok now, but this is like, I don't know. It was like such a foreign thing to me. And then like I called my friends and like, I think my video's being picked up or something. Like, I didn't even know what the algorithm really was. And then like an hour later, it was like 20,000 views. And it was 100,000 views. And then Barstool and Daily Mail shared it. And then like before I know it was like, and it just was like this, like my first like sense of viral. Like I didn't go like that have like 1 million subscribers overnight. I think I got 20,000 subscribers from that video, but then I was like, hey, you can do this. And then I just dove into YouTube at all costs. But it's just a reminder when things don't work out, it seems like everything is failing and failing, but you really want it, and you just have this feeling in your gut, just like keep pushing through, even like with all those stops, because it all ended up happening.
Crazy. Yeah, I feel like that's a perfect example, because sometimes like people will ask, about social media. They're like, how do you even get started? You literally just start. You stay dedicated. I mean, you were, like 10,000 subscribers, and you were like so diehard about getting it on time. And, like it's truly just, you post, you hope for the best, you manifest it, and you make quality content that people would love to see. And I think it'll work. Like, I think that I'm a strong believer that if you put everything into that the universe will reward you with it. Like, you can't get discouraged, because you could have gotten discouraged, at like the Orange Theory one and been like, oh, there's only 50 views. I'm done. I don't need to do YouTube anymore. But you were like kept pushing. Like, you didn't even see the 100,000 until months later, So that's crazy. And that's always so neat to see like a person that's so successful at something. Like, you crush it at YouTube. And like, that's how you got started, like you were hustling, you're doing a second job, and sometimes you gotta do it, and you gotta grind, and then, like you're never really comfortable.
And like, even like, that's why like I bartended for a long time, just like pay for the bills. And like, it was kind of lucky. There's many different ways you can go about it. You can have a full-time job, do YouTube on the side until your YouTube pays more than your full-time job. Like, so many people, for me, I was like, I just need to make money to pay for YouTube. And that's kind of like how I did it. And that's what bartending allowed me, because then I had Monday through Friday during the day usually to work on it. And then I just made all my money on the weekends. And until it started paying more, until it started getting like, I got, then though, you got to be careful to anyone doing this, is like, when we were talking about burnout, then for about 4 months there, I was like, oh, people want diet challenges. Okay, we're going to do every diet challenge. And I'd never been a dieter. I did the bodybuilding thing, but I'd never done like Weight Watchers or keto, or like I've always been lean, like I've been tiny, but then like that's what the algorithm wanted. So I just was like, feed the algorithm. And I was like, wasn't sleeping, bartending on weekends, just eating whatever YouTube wanted. And it was such a weird, because my rationale was like, I want to be the anti-diet video. Like, I want to show that you shouldn't do this by doing this, which sounds so dumb, but it was a learning. And like, also, so if you do have a video that takes off to my TikTokers, and it's something you don't enjoy doing, to anyone trying to get this, just take it as that. Take it as like, that was a cool video that got some eyes on me. Now I'm going to continue doing what I want. And it's, do not get sucked down to doing videos you do not enjoy doing, because I was stuck there for a little bit. And I think my audience is known, and occasionally I'll do it for like fun, like just pure, like I'll do it for like 24 hours. But back then I would have been like a week, a month of whatever's trending. And I destroyed myself. And that's why I think a lot of YouTubers quit. A lot of people ruin their mental health on social media, because you start to just appease the algorithm instead of like actually creating, like letting your creativity flow. And I think it's something, it's been a journey, but I think just even in the last few months, I'm finally getting to the point of like making videos that was like my actual vision of having a YouTube channel.
Well, with that being said, that leads me into my next question, the one I'm going to wrap up, because I feel like we've been chatting on quite a long time.
Oh.
No, I love it.
Talk too long. I'm sorry. No, this is why I was like, my story has so many. There's so many.
So I think we should definitely like dive more into those as, we get into our podcast. Like, there's so many great topics to go over, and you just really just scratch the surface. But my last question for you, Kelty, it's a little bit of payback, is, and honestly not really, because I know you probably have this planned out, but like, where do you personally see in your career, because now you do YouTube, you do Instagram, now you're doing a podcast, I see you on TikTok.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself with, like your career? What do you want down the road in 5 to 10 years? Whether that's even family to career to literally anything. Where do you want to live? Give the nitty gritties.
Ooh. This could be a whole podcast in itself, but I definitely
condense it.
Right, I will. My goal has always been, I think, and just like why I get up in the morning is just like, it sounds cheesy and I'll expand into it, but it's just like my little what's your why is like, I was like, create light. And I forever want to create things that make people either want to go do things that fill them up or just have a little moment of light. Like I just want to make whatever does that to people, just spread it. Because I've been when there's none, and it can be that Nike commercial that inspires someone to like go do something, go work out, go move their body. Or it was just a time the world is burning and you're like, I just need something to distract me and enjoy. And it's like, good, I want to make the nutrient dense food of content, not the fast food. And of course I'll dabble in the TikTok when it's fun and that, but I think I see for myself in this podcast, like I've always wanted to have a talk show, our own little talk show. And so I'm hoping that's what we can kind of do and have great conversations with people and hear. I feel I've lived a lot of life. I've lived a lot of places. So I've got to see a lot of perspectives. So I do want us to one day bring on every single kind of perspective, because I think everyone has a story that could break your heart and inspire you. And I think the more stories you hear, the more it humanizes every single person, and we can really get connected in that sense. So I think I love storytelling, which is what I've learned. So I did that and continue on with my YouTube. Like I've got my 30-day series, which are kind of like my documentary. And then I got the Unbox series, which is unboxing some controversial topics while we just literally unbox fun stuff. So just always keep it a little light, even when we're talking deep things. It's just, I feel comedy is my coping mechanism. So that's why I like to approach subjects like that. And sometimes I know I get hated on sometimes for people like, this is a tough subject, you shouldn't make light of it. I was like, I can make as much suicide jokes as I want, and I'm going to do it because that's my coping mechanism. And I feel you can broach darker topics by keeping it light. So I want to grow those. And then, as you know, music has been kind of my passion. So just continue to make music for the workout world and maybe live events one day. And with you and me, have kind of talked about that. And just keep growing it. Like I just am so thankful I get to make cool content every single day and make videos that hopefully people enjoy. And I hope I can continue doing it for forever, and everything else in life is plus.
Absolutely. I love that. I think that's fantastic. And I appreciate your taboo topics, at least, because I feel like we should normalize that. Like we should normalize being able to talk about anything and everything in a sense of like, you shouldn't feel ashamed or like hush hush, or even like one of the topics I know you and I want to go into is like plastic surgery. And, you know, we both have our boobs done, and like people don't talk about that. People honestly got a lot of hate when I got it, you know, like it's just like so interesting how like some people are fascinated by those topics, but at the same time they're like hush hush and they don't want to talk about it, where I feel like you can avoid a lot of confusion by just chatting and sitting down and being real about them.
Yeah. And even like this will preview, because this will be one of our next few videos. Like a great example is plastic surgery. And like you just got yours in, I'm just getting mine out. And I feel had I had more conversations with people and not been so taboo, I would have realized I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And then had you like, and the more we have these conversations, you can really understand like why you're doing it and like how happy they've made you. And that's an example of someone that shouldn't, versus me. I was like, oh, it's transactional. I was like, your body should never be transactional, people. So just like, and sometimes there's not, and like every single thing in life is usually gray. It's usually not black or white. And so I think by having the conversations, you can really allow people to make their own decisions, because it's going to look different on every single person. And as long as you can have conversations without even having like cherry on top or being like, oh, here's the answer, just like having it, people can figure it out on their own. People are smart. You listening, you're smart. You don't need us to tell you do A to B. It's like, here's some examples, you take it as you want and figure it out.
Yeah, I think the secret to life is discovering that you're in control of your own life and do whatever you want to do. That's like my go-to thing. It's like, you do whatever you want to do, because if you copy other people, that's when it's a downfall. You just got to be you,
Trust
unapologetically you.
Fully.
Yes.
Trust your gut.
Well, Kelty, thank you for sharing your story. I loved hearing it. I feel like as your friend, I learned so much about you. Yeah. And I'm sure the listeners loved it. And it's so fun that we get to at least like open up our world a little bit, because I know sometimes you get lost in the sauce. Like you make a lot of challenge videos, so people like might not actually know your background. They might not really know who Kelty is. So that's so fun. Exactly. It's like this podcast gets just to show you who you are as like a core person. And that's my favorite thing about podcasts is everyone just gets to be themselves. You can't hide from the microphone. This is who we really are.
And we're going deep. This is just like you said, this is just who you're going to be listening to. And now we're going to get sassy.
Yeah. Now we're going to get sassy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be goofy. But yeah, so I guess with that being said, if you guys want to leave a 5-star review for our podcast, that helps. If you want to check out our Instagram at Hitting the Bars, please do. Yeah, we're going to have some fun games on there. We're going to have little segments we want you guys to like submit. So be on a lookout. Any last words from you, Kelty?
Yeah, go leave us a DM of, what should we do? I think we should have them DM us an embarrassing bar story you have that you want read on the pod. Let's do that. Let's keep it, and that will be a foreshadowing to our next episode.
I love it. Absolutely. That's going to be fantastic. So, I mean, you can group message us, or we'll just look at our own DMs. Who knows?
Oh, yeah.
But send it in.
I mean, like, DM the...
Oh, wait, no. Have them send it to Hitting Bars. Oh, my gosh.
We're new to this.
Get your head out of the clouds. Oh,
Sacrifice.
gosh. I don't know what podcasting is. Okay. That makes way more sense. LOL. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to just hop off this now.
Yeah, because we still don't have an outro, so... Peace. Bye.
Peace.
Okay.
Peace and blessings.
Okay, we're not keeping that. Peace and blessings. Are we keeping that? No.
Is that bad?
Huh? No, I just mean like that won't be back next week either.